Hi, welcome to Racehouse with me, Joe Lee.
And me, Darren Reeves.
Canadian Grand Prix. It was wet. It was wild. Far cry from Monaco, Darren. We had a lot of stuff. We had another win by Max Verstappen, which I didn't really see coming, to be fair. He held in there, but we'll get to that. And, well, there was so much action on track. I mean, it was a great race to watch.
Yeah, mate, I have to say it's my favourite race of the season so far. Having spent 6 days in Monaco with you, Joe, to see possibly one of the most boring races in Formula One history. Formula One then just comes up with the most amazing, interesting, intriguing, entertaining 2 hours, however long it lasted. I found, honestly, I couldn't take my eyes off it the whole time, Joe. But you're right. We mix everything up. The weather was crazy all weekend, but we come out with Max Verstappen on top again. But I have to say, I think he earned it. I obviously wanted to see a Brit, and we've seen Brits finish second, third, fourth. But I think he really earned this one rather than coasted to a win.
Yeah, and it was a real battle. I mean, this thing now of Red Bull McLaren. I mean, I am obviously, we're McLaren fans. We lean towards McLaren, but it's so nice to see them doing so well, and really up there. Mercedes as well on great form. They must have had some upgrades. To see Hamilton up there pushing for third, having a real go. I mean, it was sensational to see them up there. It was great to see Lewis back up there as well, kind of where he belongs, auditioning in a way, or showcasing what he's going to do next year. But let's bring it back to qualifying. The weather was atrocious. We saw Karen Chanduk's, if you saw his Instagram, he showed videos just how wet it was. Lewis put his hand out. There was just clumps of hail that just falling. I mean, this is June. This is supposed to be... I've been to the Canadian Grand Prix, and it was absolutely scorching when I went there. It was so hot, so lovely. These made crazy conditions for these guys to get times in. And in qualification, we saw some craziness happening. What was going on there?
Well, like you said, the weather was absolutely monsoon at one point, but I've never seen a track dry so fast in all my life. Whether it was during the race, whether it was during qualifying, whether it was just doing free practice. It was
it's great design. Isn't it?
I've managed to cycle the track, but I've not done a race weekend there. So I cycled around it about 20 years ago, and it's not changed at all. There's some places where I think are just totally lined up for accidents to happen. If you look through turns 3 and 4 with the wall on the right, you've then got the S's later on where Science Span and famously Vettel back in the day when Button won. You've then got it's got everything, and then this massive, great long straight where I remember Nigel Mansell waving to the crowd in 1991 to win the Canadian Grand Prix, and he came around the hairpin and ran out of fuel whilst waving to the crowd on the last lap. So the track just brings brilliant racing. But qualifying, bit of a shock. George Russell on pole. I don't think any of us saw it coming other than maybe Toto Wolff. So in Monaco, we know that George had a new front wing. This race, both drivers had this new front wing, but I don't think we really saw it really happen in Monaco with Mercedes finishing down, I think it was 5th and 7th. Yeah. But George, he's got the beating of Lewis Hamilton in qualifying. That's 8-1 to George in qualifying in Mercedes this season.
Yeah.
Where's that come from? What's Lewis doing or not doing in qualifying? I can't work it out.
And it was the slimmest of margins. In fact, there was no margin because he and Max both tied it. I think it was 1 minute 12.000.
Exactly, but yes.
Because George did it first, he got to be pole.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was incredible. I mean, in fact, the top 4 or 5 was between 200 of a second or something.
Literally, I'm just looking at it now. So it was, the 5th one. It was half a second, to be honest with you, between the. No, hold on. No, it was 0.228 of a second between the top five, but between the top six, in fact, which is so close. In
Nothing.
fact, put the top seven 0.280. Like, it's nothing. This
Can
is
you count that
now.
as a musician, Darren? Can you count that? What is that like if you clicked?
Well, 120 BPM is half a second, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah, one and two and three and like that, So
So it's like,
it's
yeah,
it literally is. It is
that's
really, really
crazy.
stupid. But for me, the other thing that I wanted to say was the last time this happened was in 1997 when Jacques Villeneuve, the Canadian Formula One world champion, that in fact it was the weekend he became world champion in Jerez. He did a lap time, and then Michael Schumacher did exactly the same lap time in the Ferrari. And then, would you believe, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who took Damon Hill's seat in the Williams that year, did exactly the same time to the thousandth of a second as well. So there were three drivers, but you do it in the order that they do it. So first come, first served, as George got. Well done, George. I think it was a brilliant, brilliant lap.
Brilliant lap. And then, there was also other brilliants. We saw Daniel Ricciardo. I mean, what was he doing there?
Where's that come from?
Super fast.
0.178 seconds off pole position in the RB with Tsunoda in eighth, only 0.414 seconds. I'm going down to the thousandth because it's really important.
Yeah, super important.
Yeah.
And that was that's a big boost for Daniel because, we've kind of rained on him a bit, but because Formula One really is about performance. You can't hide. You can't hide from where you finish, and you can't hide from those times. But where he's pulled that out the bag, he's beaten. I don't know where that came from. We'll come to the race in a second, and his best race probably all season, I would say. But he was overtaken quite a bit. Should we move on to the race?
Well, do you know what? Just talking about RB, they've signed Tsunoda. Is it for 2 years? I think 2-year deal. I think he's absolutely earned that, and I think actually Daniel coming to the team and whatever Daniel's bought, he's a race winner. He's raced, in the top Red Bull team. He's fighting for his life. It's not really worked out for him, to be honest. But I think what he's bought to the team and bought to Yuki has taken Yuki and the team up another level. It's just Daniel hasn't maybe got the results or seemed like what we expected, considering he was fighting to get Perez's job. And of course, there's another bit of news this weekend. Perez has signed a new 2-year deal. So there's this driver market now is starting to really, really take shape. And I think we then see that in the race, Joe. Now, where do you think I'm talking about? Got you.
Well, yeah. Are you talking about where they're going to go?
I'm actually talking about Ocon. So
I was about to come to Ocon because he's been given the boot.
Yes, and that's my point. So Ocon is leaving Alpine, and then in the race, I know I'm going to go to the end of the race, but team orders came into play for Alpine at the end, and Ocon was asked to move aside, and actually he got really cross about it, and he left it. Well, I'm not moving aside. I'm not moving aside. They wanted Gasly to try and catch Ricciardo, who finished in eighth. But Ocon didn't let him by. So I think it was 2 laps left. There was no time to catch up, 3 seconds to do it. I actually think Ocon is coming across like an absolute idiot right now. And I think he needs to pull his neck in.
After Monaco, that was really irresponsible in Monaco, what he tried to do. And, yes, you're racing and you're trying to get places, but there's also this unwritten rules, a code of conduct between the drivers that they all kind of look out for each other as well. Because any of these guys could die at any time, really, because it's such a dangerous sport. And what he pulled in Monaco, that stunt, and he ended up flipping the air. It was so unnecessary, and he got an absolute rollicking, I heard, back at Alpine afterwards.
Quite rightly so.
And I think this is probably what's happened. This news has come after Monaco. Did they think, look, you're jeopardizing the team, you're costing us money, you're smashing up the car, you're peeing off your teammate, I nearly swore, and it's not good enough. he's had moments of brilliance in his career, and I think he has been a strong driver, but he's making stupid mistakes. He's like
Yeah.
his attitude. It feels like he's just got attitude on the track.
Well, I made a suggestion in the last podcast, and that was, there was talk about him being taken out the car seat for a race, basically being suspended by the team.
Mm.
I actually think they should have done, quite frankly. And in FP1 this weekend, who was in the car? Jack Doohan, who is the reserve driver. Put Jack in there. I say, like Ollie Behrman did when Science was ill. You give him a chance. Let's see what happens. I know Ocon got a point, but it can't be really any worse than what's happening at the moment. And I know a point is very valuable to these teams. But I think we should have seen Jack Doohan in the car for the whole weekend. Quite frankly, stick him in the car for the rest of the season if Ocon's going to do what he did this weekend.
I don't think we're going to see Ocon with another drive, actually. I think, when you've got someone who kind of smashes up the cars a bit too much, they're not really taken. But that said, Mick Schumacher is also being rumoured to be lined up for Alpine to replace Ocon, I saw.
Well, when you think of Mick Schumacher and Ocon are both Mercedes camp drivers. Toto Wolff manages Ocon. I'm not sure if he manages Schumacher, but he manages Ocon. And Ocon really should be the driver to take over that Mercedes drive from Lewis. Really, to me, that's the obvious choice. Had he been a team player and driving well, but if he went to Mercedes, is he going to drive well? Is he going to be able to cope with being a number two driver? Yes, it doesn't work. And Mick Schumacher should be another consideration for that Mercedes drive next season. But I don't see either. If I'm honest with you, I think Bottas is in the mix for it as well.
Really?
I'm
thinking that Bottas is going to retire. I mean, what a terrible year. No points. Just they've had the most garish looking car, and yet they've not been anywhere. It's unbelievable. I understand why Zhao's in there, bit of politics perhaps, and great representation. But Bottas, I mean, it's been nowhere. Could you really see him back at Mercedes?
The only reason I think that is because I think they want to bring Kimi Antonelli into the car. There's no doubt he'll be in the car for 2026. The question is does Toto Wolff think it's too soon to bring him in for 2025? So I think they're looking for a one-year driver. Now, I think that's why Carlos Sainz isn't going to go there, because Sainz wants a multi-year deal. And quite rightly, he should get whatever he wants. He's won 2 race wins in the last, since last September. Driven the socks off that Ferrari, given Leclerc a run for his money. But I think we're going to see Sainz in the Williams, and I think we might see somebody in that Mercedes for 1 year before Antonelli in 2026. That's my prediction for this week. We'll know. It
may change next week.
Exactly. So, but I think it's really fascinating because this is the first season, 2020-24, that's the year we're in, where there's not been any driver changes from the year before. No rookies, no changes, no movement, no nothing. And unprecedented. We've got a few. We're seeing history with that. We saw history in Monaco where the top 10 on the grid finished the race where they started. It'd only been top 6 prior to that in the most boring race, in my opinion, in history, with the most amazing event. I think it's fascinating to see who's going to go where. And it all started with Lewis before even a wheel turned for 2024. So it's brilliant. It's fascinating.
And do you know what was fascinating and to watch? Was my man of the match, Kevin Magnussen.
Oh,
now I think Lando did really, really well, and I think he could have won that race, but he was a bit unlucky with his pit was a little bit slow. Still fast, but not as quick as Mag.
Well, I've got an opinion on that, but K-Mag, well, not just K-Mag, but Haas.
Tire strategy.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Haas did amazingly by taking the gamble of putting both cars on wets. And it was wet, that start. Let's be honest. I was really surprised there weren't more cars on full wets, if I'm honest.
But you saw how slow they were going around. They were just like going, and K-Mag was going, la, 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 la. That's going to be a new meme on the shorts.
It was wonderful to see, but they needed the rain to last for longer.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
But they would have been caught up eventually. But then that pit stop when he came in, changed the car. It took forever. It was about
yeah.
8.5 seconds, and the tires weren't even there, ready. Like, what were they doing? What were they thinking? So unfortunately, all that work that he had done has been completely undone because the pit crew did let him down.
Yeah.
And then after that, yeah, he was kind of a bit more resigned
To,
to the back forms.
to be fair, they finished 11th and 12th, just outside the points. However, had the top 5 teams all actually had cars finish, that would have been a lot worse, I suppose. But
Yeah,
you've got to finish for anything to happen. You've got to cross that line.
yeah.
So I think they were unlucky. I thought they had a great first stint to the race and then disappeared once the rain dried up.
It was like Alex Albon. Yeah, great drive. That lovely double overtake. That was sensational. I
Wow.
absolutely loved that.
Well, I think he was on the seat of his
Smoking.
pants. On the seat of his pants. That we'll see that for years to come. That was luck. That how that was didn't end up in a 3-car crash. I do not
Yeah.
know. Wow.
Very cool, very cool. But then he got clipped by Signs, was it?
Yes.
Yeah, and that was just super unlucky. And Logan Sargent was already out, so it was just like demolition derby,
Well,
really, by the end of it.
I think Sargent dictated the winner of the race actually from his crash down on turn 4. I've got a lovely photo of me stood by that wall, Joe, and because there's been
Can't wait to see that.
many people crashed there. Michael Schumacher crashed in that wall actually, but Sargent, is he trying too hard?
Every race, it's
yeah.
nearly every race now, and it's come on, mate. You know these tracks. You've done the sims, you've done the testing. You know this track. I mean, yes, it's wet, but every race, come on. I mean, you got to be better than that. And I'm
It's
sure
not
there's
good
better American drivers.
For Williams,
Must
they've
be.
been so desperate for money, really, for years now. And obviously, with the Williams family, just it became too expensive. Then they sold it to Doralton, I want to say, which
Yeah.
have money, have a strategy, have James Valves in place, but they've not put the money into the second driver. So Latifi and now Sargent, they're paid drivers, bringing money to North America. But just not good enough, quite frankly. There's lots and lots of good American drivers. Colton Herta was in line for a McLaren drive before Piastri came in. Stick anybody in there. But Sargent, I'm afraid, he's not good enough.
He's not good enough, and we always have got Lance Stroll,
Yep.
his home race, obviously. But yeah, Logan, it's not setting the world on fire, and kind of the idea of a possible Andretti, entrance to have a full American team, I can't see they're going to get excited about Logan Sargent, actually. It might be a Nick De Vries job, and really how Logan has stayed there is because of this pay to play, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It is frustrating because there's so many good drivers, so many good rookies. Yeah,
Well,
so that needs to change really, and also Formula One needs to be more accessible. I don't think you should allow drivers to pay to be drivers. I think you need to recruit them like other scouts would a normal sport.
It's money, Joe. You know it's so expensive all the way, as we talked about just before the podcast with the karting. It's mega money right from grassroots, and the pyramid just gets unbelievably expensive. And these teams historically have needed paid drivers to keep going. However, in the world of Netflix and Drive to Survive, these teams now have become mega valuable. $1 billion to buy a Formula One team now. So it's funny, isn't it? There's no teams on the market, and there's F1 saying to Andretti, buy a team. I think it was Demilla Carli who said, FIA, well, if you want to join, buy a team. Well, who's for sale? The only one I'd say, because obviously Sauber has been bought by Audi, the only one there is are Renault going to sell Alpine? That's the only option. They need to do something, but they're a works team. Are they going to? I don't think they are. We need to bring in an 11th and 12th team. But just going back to Williams, if you've got all these Mercedes drivers, Mick Schumacher, Ocon, you've got Antonelli. Stick one of them in the Williams for the rest of the season. Obviously not Ocon because he's got his drive, unless we stick Doohan in to the Alpine. But I just don't
Antonelli
know
could
what we're
go
doing.
in.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just like George Russell did. It's
Well,
there
Mick
to be done.
Schumacher, he was in Williams, wasn't he? Mick Schumacher, but he was crashing the car a fair bit. I really would love to. We are campaigning for these rookies. There's big
Yes,
campaigns to get more women in sport. We need more rookies in the sport
we
because
do.
it's just fresh blood, you know. And people who aren't performing. I'm thankful that Daniel Ricciardo's had a good rocket, and you know, he's now, you know, got into gear and he's feeling a bit of form. Let's see if that will continue. But all of these elements, you know, with the wet weather, the tire strategies, people like Magnussen who capitalized on that, but also, you know, the sterling work by McLaren and Mercedes, it made it such an exciting race, and
Yeah.
it really was edge of the seat stuff. No, we absolutely loved it. Do you have any shout outs at all?
Well, shout outs today. I think we just need to give Opus Events a shout out for what they did for us in Monaco 2 weeks ago. So Lee,
Top guys.
you know, Lee at Opus Events, and Charlie, you know, who is just the Formula One door of, he knows everybody and
He knows
everybody
everyone.
knows him. Yeah. The two of them, you know, Charlie's been on here. We should get Lee on here as well and have a chat sometime. They're two wonderful, welcoming people that are just great businessmen and great fun to be around. So let's shout out to Lee and Charlie. Definitely.
Shout out, guys, and thanks for having us. And thank you for watching as well. It's raining now in sunny UK. It is June, just for reference, and we saw this in Canada. So please do your recycling, plant some trees, because it's all going crazy now. We'll be back in a couple of weeks for the Spanish Grand Prix review. I've been to Spain. You've been to Spain, Darren.
Yep.
It's a great little track, and
I love it.
People kind of like forget about Spain and they think, oh yeah, you know, it's not much of a track, but I don't know. There's been some real moments there in history. It's a beautiful weather usually, and Barcelona is fantastic. And you know, if you can get to Barcelona, go and check this track out before it moves to Madrid. But we'll talk a bit
Yes.
more about that next time. So for now, it's goodbye from me, Jolie.
And it's goodbye from me, Darren Reeves. Take care.
Take care.